Hi, I'm Jenny Glover for Voicing Art. Today we're interviewing Sam Vernon, Program Administrator for Art in Public Places for Prince George's County Government.
Yeah.
Well, hi Sam, I'm glad that you were able to spend some time with me today. I am interviewing you for Voicing Art, and I have a lot of questions that I want to throw at you and just get to know a little more about you.
Sounds good.
As Program Manager for Art in Public Places for Prince George's County Government, what do you do?
Well, my priority is to administer the Art in Public Places program in a way that I work with a panel that was appointed and confirmed by the county executive and the county council. They are at the top of their in their fields. You have the executive director of the Arts and Humanities Council, Rhonda Dallas, countywide arts coordinator for park and planning, Alex Simpson, Levon Thomas, who works as the division chief for community relations for the county executive's office, and Dina Crossan, who's a program expert and just a great person in the field of contemporary art, and instructor, and just really knowledgeable person. So, and also to Odros Melkeshwa, who is the chair of the visual art and media department over at Bowie State University. So all five of those folks, plus me, are in charge of commissioning public artwork for newly renovated or just completely brand new civic buildings that are county property. So that includes fire stations, police stations, libraries, justice centers, etc. The public art comes in out of legislation that was passed in 1988 that 1% of construction costs for those kinds of projects should go to public art. And so the program will be 25 years old next year, and we're really excited to have commissioned over 24 pieces throughout the years that really speak to the diversity and artistic engagement of the county.
Whoa, I didn't know it was that extensive.
Yeah, and that's just the 1% piece of it. I also partner with other organizations and municipalities and the private sector to bring public art into the community as well. So, but the main priority is these, the capital improvement plan projects, but we also have other projects going on as well.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to show some of my work at the county administration building, and I really thought that you were just focusing on getting artists just to display. I didn't know that you actually commissioned artists to actually do works for specific buildings.
Well, when I came on board, I started this position in January of this year, of 2012, and something that I talked to the county executive about was the fact that he was very passionate about the arts. His son is an artist, so is his youngest daughter, and his middle daughter is also artistic as well. So he's very passionate about it, and he wanted me to start an exhibition program at the county administration building. Without really having much precedent for it, I decided that I would use to start the display cases that were on the first floor of the county administration building. Start small and then over time get bigger. So you were the first artist that I was able to show, and I think I saw, just based on your exhibition, that people were really yearning for the artwork in their work environment. Visitors had something to look at, and as they were kind of moving through the space of the county administration building. And so since that exhibition, it was a learning experience for me and definitely gave me a platform to expand. Now I'm showing artwork on the 5th floor in the county executive suite, and currently the artist by the name of Linda Uphoff has about 36 pieces up there. So it's been kind of like a step-by-step process. I recently had a meeting with my supervisors where we're going to expand even more and provide a budget for an exhibition program. So that's a new thing. that's kind of on the side.
And you do this pretty much by yourself.
I'm the
You are the artist.
I am the program administrator, and I have to say that my panel is amazing. I mean, they've been very supportive, but as I mentioned, their accolades and their positions, they have a lot going on in their professional lives as well. Alex Simpson and Tuodros Melkashva are also practicing artists, so trying to balance the time and see what can be done, all six of us, is sometimes a challenge, but primarily the responsibility to move this program forward is mine and the panels as much as possible.
So what's the most fun working in this position?
Well, I think meeting people like you. I mean, I love meeting artists. I love being able to go out and do studio visits and, connect with artists in Prince George's County. I think growing up here, I went to Thomas G. Pullen Middle School in Landover, and then I went to Suitland High Schools for their visual arts program. I didn't realize how strong the artists community in the county was, and really how spread out it is as well. There was no Gateway Arts District. Now there is. So I think I love the fact that my job allows me to kind of go in and out of the different areas of the county and every time meet artists or art enthusiasts who really want the county to continue to grow culturally.
Now, you talked about high school. Where did you go to college?
I went to the Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art. It's a really special school. It is a full tuition scholarship school, so everyone who gets in gets a full ride. And it's pretty selective. I was able to go there with one of my classmates from Suitland, actually, so the fact that two of us got in was a huge deal. Then the next year, our friend who also went to Suitland, who's from here, got in as well. So Prince George's County has a history of sending students, and we weren't the first ones, students to this really kind of competitive private school in the East Village in the middle of everything.
That was my next
New
question.
York's activity.
I've heard of Cooper Union,
Yeah.
but I wasn't sure where it was located.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you finish?
I graduated in 2009.
Well, this is a wonderful transition for you to come pretty much straight out of college and to land this position.
I think it's a blessing. It's a great opportunity. Decided after I graduated from Cooper in 2009, I decided to stay in New York. I felt it was important to continue the momentum that I had with showing in galleries and expanding my work professionally. Artistically, it was just the right place for me. So I stayed about 4 more years. During that time, I worked for a multidisciplinary nonprofit arts organization that has the longest running music festival in Brooklyn, in the borough. It's called Celebrate Brooklyn. And after that, I worked for their contemporary art gallery, currently located in Brooklyn Heights, but they'll be moving. They have a project going on where they'll be moving to downtown Brooklyn, Fort Greene area.
So tell me a little bit about the types of art that you're working on.
Well, I think my practice is definitely, in one word, it's definitely interdisciplinary. I think everything I do, first and foremost, comes from drawing. Drawing is like the anchor. And then from drawing, it has moved and it does move into photography, into installation, into light. I've also done, in collaboration with another artist, some sound work. I'm interested in moving into animation as well. I've made some paintings and sculptures. So it's just, and I think that really came from Cooper, because Cooper did not mandate that you declare a major. You just took classes that you wanted to take. And I think that because of that, my practice really evolves into a kind of situation where I don't feel obligated or completely like connected to one medium specifically.
Or confined.
Or confined,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. I don't feel confined at all. Actually, it's all out there for me. That's how I feel anyway.
Well, how did you get started in the arts?
My family is really artistic. I mean, my mother is a fashion forecaster and designer. Her mother was used to draw. Her father as well. I have my grandparents' drawings around the house. My father is a painter. So, yeah, I've always made art since I was very little. I've always made art.
And what kinds of art did you do?
When I was little, I was an only child for about 9 years. My sister was born later.
Mm-hmm.
So I think only children have this thing where they create their own world sometimes. So I used to draw my families. I used to like draw portraits of my family and have their names and draw their houses. Actually, looking back on it, I probably could have been an architect if I really, applied myself, because when I was younger, I used to kind of do house plans and draw them out and everything. Yeah, it was. I had a lot of imagination.
And still do, I see. So what's your inspiration?
My inspiration actually, I think, comes a lot from, well, it started, I'll say, in 2008. I was feeling like I needed to read more. Like, growing up, I always read. I was a voracious reader. And then I stopped reading for pleasure at some point, and I said, I got to get back to that. So I started reading, like, Octavia Butler and Toni Morrison and Edwidge Dantican and all these, like, black female authors who I just found so much pleasure in. And I think the themes from my work are completely derivative. I mean, I was literally trying to caption scenes in their novels when I was in school. And from there, it really just evolved into my own kind of imagination and vernacular. So those women inspired me, definitely. I feel like I'm in conversations with women I never met,
I always enjoy talking with you because you elevate the conversation. So,
Thank you.
now, you create installations. What sparked you to do that?
Well, I've always been the kind of person that I don't like to feel boxed in. We talked a little bit about confinement earlier. I don't like the fact that sometimes painters have to start with a canvas, right, with a rectangle or with a square. I never really felt like that was me, and I always wanted to be bigger and go and kind of like have this endless kind of way of going about things, that I could be a printmaker and have just have the work keep going, like keep flowing, because that's what I love so much about printmaking, that you can continue to just develop your image. So at the time, I was just thinking to myself, okay, I love printmaking. It's really expensive. I love multiplicity. I love editions, and photography and printmaking lean themselves to that. But I'm also in dialogue with painting as well. So how do I do this? Well, financially, I just wasn't in a situation to continue making the kind of prints that I wanted to. Lithography is a pretty expensive practice. So when I was at work one day, I put my drawings through the Xerox copier, and that kind of black ink against the white Xerox 8.5 by 11 paper actually was exactly what I was looking for. And then from there, I started making these huge collages out of the Xerox drawings. And then from there, I started hanging them on the walls, because I had a dream that I was walking through this cave or whatever, and so I started hanging the drawings. So it really is, I think, something that came about from experimentation, but also just from being in a situation where, unfortunately, at the time, I couldn't really afford to continue making prints in the traditional sense of the word.
Mm-hmm. I need to digress. You were talking about printmaking. I'm new to printmaking. I just took a course a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to explain what you mean, continue to develop your image.
Okay, so the process of printmaking is, I love it in the sense that you start with an image and you can manipulate it using different techniques, using different materials, and put your image to the press and put it through several times. And I think that the multiplicity of it is really what excites me. And I took printmaking in high school, in college, and I've taken lithography, I've taken silkscreen, I've taken intaglio. What else have I taken? I've done lino cuts. I've just it's really, I mean, etching. It's just really a great kind of way to make images. I think it's very tactile, and it also allows you to change your image over time.
What's your favorite?
In terms of what
process?
What process? I really liked etching. I didn't take it long enough in school, but I have some plates. I mean, I do plan on going back to it at some point. But as you can see, you know, by my line work, I mean, my drawings, the etching tool allows you to create really fine lines. And when you roll that plate up and send it through the press, the ink catches even the slightest line. So I love that. It's like, well, I really love William Blake's etchings, and
I'm not familiar with them, but I will look them up when I get back to my computer. Well, tell me, when you're working on a piece and it's challenging you, how do you work through it?
I mean, I usually am working on several things at once. So if something is if I feel challenged by something, I usually give myself a break. I usually just say, okay, I'm just going to put this away for a little bit, come back to it with some fresh eyes, and work on the other images that I'm making.
And how do you know when you finish the work?
That's the thing with my drawings. I mean, I can always go back to them. I mean, it's funny because I have the original drawing, but then when I send it through the Xerox copier, I now have, in some ways, a brand new work, right? But there's still that original drawing. So I have every step of each drawing that I've made. So they're really never finished. I could go back. I mean, but in my mind, what's finished is when, you know, I feel like the image is communicating what I sought to try to build, and then it's also as dense as it can be. Those are my two signals. Yeah.
Dense and what?
Dense and meets the kind of, I guess, meets the content of what I was trying to build in the first place.
So when you say dense, you're talking about just filling in the space.
Yeah, like the textures, the how the line work and how the content of the piece is like operating. You know, some of my work is actually, I'll say a lot of my work is figurative. A lot of the drawings are figurative, but I've also been made these really kind of interesting patterns, and that I create with my line work as well. So that goes more into the abstract methodology that I have.
See, looking at the work that you have here today, I wouldn't think of you as a figurative artist. But there's so much nature conveyed in these pieces.
This is the newer work, and this is, I mean, whenever I'm asked to show work, I always try, I mean, I like to show what I'm working on now, because a lot of times, though I love some of the drawings that I made in 2008, 2009, some of the work that I made then, it's not always where I am right now. But what's exciting about where I am right now is the fact that I'm actually kind of doing a weird thing where when I was in high school, I was taking a lot of photos outside and really kind of black and white in the darkroom kind of work. And now I'm kind of going back to photography. So, and also shooting outside. So now I'm really excited about that because I've been able to bring my installation back into a process that I kind of started with when I was really just learning about photography and art in the first place.
With 360 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And what would you call some of your breakthrough moments?
I think I had a breakthrough moment in 2009 with my thesis show. I literally covered, it had to be like 20,000 square feet just with my drawings. It was just immense. It was massive. I mean, the whole floor, the whole 6th floor lobby was my work, and the ceilings were 20 feet high or something like that. And I mean, it took me 4 days to install nonstop. I wasn't sleeping. But then when it was done and the whole room was black and white with red lighting shining down, and people couldn't even believe that the space had been transformed as it was. To this day, people still approach me about that show. I know that I made an impression with that one. And so from there, I had my first solo show in 2011, spring 2011. That was also a huge deal because, having a solo show in New York is it's a great opportunity. And
where was that?
That was at AIR Gallery in Dumbo, Brooklyn. At the time, I was also a fellow, so as part of the fellowship that they have for emerging artists, you receive a solo show with them.
And who are some of your favorite artists?
I have so many. Abigail DeVille is I think a peer of mine, but she's doing some amazing work. She's one of my favorite artists. I would say, it's hard. I mean, Mark Bradford, his paintings are beautiful. I really admire him, and I admire him, the interviews that I've seen of him. I really think he's just a genuine, great artist. I think a lot of people will compare me and what I'm doing and how it looks sometimes to Kara Walker. And I do appreciate her installations, and her show at the Whitney was incredible. It sticks with me to this day. So there are so many artists that I admire, but a lot of them being of African descent, definitely, and having to do with Sanford Biggers, definitely one. Having to do with some of the elements of Afrofuturism that I deal with in my own work. Like, those are the artists that I follow a lot.
And professionally, what are your biggest challenges or biggest hurdles?
Well, I think I'm always trying to balance my commitment to the arts, big picture, and the arts community with my own personal practice. So it's the difference between being out there and being an ambassador and being active, and then also taking the time to be singular and to really kind of separate yourself in ways and focus on your own work as well. Now, not to say that your work that you have to be, shut up somewhere in a basement, making your work and not interacting with people. I mean, there are artists whose work relies on other people to engage with it, and that's a lot of what it is. But for me, I do have to make the time. I have to buy out the time in my schedule to make my work, and that's challenging. Sometimes the time management of it is definitely tough. I think, I moved back down here when I was 24 years old. I turned 25 a few months ago, and so I feel like, I'm in a pretty good place, and I feel like I'm surrounded by people who want me to do well, and I've been very encouraged by that, and so
You're lucky.
yeah, I feel very lucky. Definitely.
Well, I know you have a few exhibits coming up.
Yes.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, a year ago, I met a curator by the name of Creighton Michael, and he's great. He's organizing a show called Pencil Pushed, and so he approached me about it. We did a studio visit, and I said, "Oh, okay, that sounds really great." And now it's a year later, and the show is opening on the 17th of this month in Knoxville, Tennessee, at the University of Tennessee. So I do plan on going to the opening. Barbara McAdams is moderating the panel and also writing the catalog essay, so that's exciting. There are it's a group show, so it's about the the process of drawing and how artists have kind of expanded formal notions of what drawing is. So I'm very excited to be a part of that show. One of my favorite artists is in that show, Mary Reed Kelly. So I'm excited about that.
Well, wait a minute. Expanded notions of what drawing is?
Yeah.
Please elaborate.
So remember when you walked in and you saw my work, right? We said, well, how did you do this? And I explained to you, these pieces started with a drawing. So though people might look at them and say, oh, this is drawing, to me, they completely are. And so that's what the show is about. It's about artists starting with drawings and perhaps going into sculpture, perhaps going into video, perhaps doing something, going into photography, transforming the idea that drawing is just simply pencil or pen or whatever you use to paper. It's beyond that.
Let's talk a little bit about the pieces that you have here.
Mm-hmm.
The one on the left.
Sure, that piece is called Laid. That is an example of all of the drawings that I've accumulated over the years, kind of just piled on top. It's really more of a psychological piece than anything. You get to a point, I think, I've done so many installations at this point where I just felt I'm going to bring my drawings outside of these kind of white box spaces or just spaces, and I just wanted them to be in the environment. I just wanted to kind of like free it up a little bit. So these this is just kind of an idea that I had to bring my drawings outside, and then also I had like this thing in the back of my mind where I always wanted to have the figure somehow present in my work, because you'll see in the drawings that I make there's lots of like women dancing and moving and operating in different ways, and limbs and hands and arms and legs and feet. And so I said, can I bring the human kind of concept, can I bring that idea into the drawings and actually make it work? Is that juxtaposition going to be good? And I think that I learned a lot from this piece. This piece, I think, is one of the more successful photos that I took from that shoot. So that's that. Yeah, it's late. This one's called Grass. I made that drawing that's laying in the grass in 2009, I think. Yeah, 2009, on a sheet of paper that was the size of this pad. And I did my whole process with it. I blew it up, had it blown up, so that now it's about, the drawing itself is about this big, from here to here. And then I laid it out in the grass. And I shot it.
And see, it looks larger than that. It looks like it might be 6 feet tall.
No, it's literally like, yeah, it's like that big.
So you're using the environment to accentuate your work.
Yes, because really the themes that I love and the themes that I deal with, going back to what I was saying before about, the women writers that I was finding a lot of inspiration from, they're writing about in some ways a kind of really specific environment. I mean, you kind of think of the southern landscape and what that means. And I think that Prince George's County being here gave me a great palette, because there are some really beautiful landscapes here. My backyard is a swamp, So I mean, talking about Zora Neale Hurston and kind of some of the things that I read of hers, and her characters and the kinds of places they went to. Those are kind of the environments I'm trying to capture. Yeah.
And this last piece?
This is really something different. It's called Runaway. I wanted to start incorporating fabric into the mix. I'm actually presently having my work printed on fabric, so it'll be not just paper anymore. I kind of took that medium and really wanted to see how it would work with my paper. And I think that, I'm still trying to figure it out, but this piece works for me because with everything that I talk about in my work about ghosts and ghost stories and, trying to create or reimagine a history for myself, which is an element of Afrofuturism that really appeals to me. The fabric worked because it gave me kind of more. I could use my model in different ways. I could wrap her. I could lay the fabric in ways that the paper didn't always allow me to do. So when I found this spot with this huge tree trunk that's bigger than the diameter of this desk, I said to myself, I have to shoot it. And I think within the kind of larger context of my work, this piece is interesting in a different way. Yeah.
Now, you're saying you're printing on fabric, and how are you doing that?
Well, literally, we have the capacity now to either do it ourselves or just send our drawings in online and have the drawings directly printed on fabric. Mm-hmm. And so, I have like a silkscreen press where I can, physically like ink up ink up the piece and then like by hand do it. But because I'm so invested in like the fine line quality of my drawings, I felt like I needed to kind of delegate that to to a company that could reproduce my drawings accurately. So, yeah.
So you have another exhibit. You mentioned the Knoxville, but
yeah. So Pencil Push with some great artists curated by Creighton Michael in Knoxville. But then I also have a show called In the Realm of Folklore at the University of Maine in Farmington, and that's myself and 6 other women artists around my age, all exploring the concept of what it means to be American, different mythologies around our Americanness. Ideologies, if you will, as well. So it's a self-curated show. So we're working together as a group to present, our message to that space. So that's next month. I'll be doing a pretty large installation and showing a couple of drawings, and then I have a show coming up in LA next year. So I'm still working on that one. That one is at Reginald Ingraham Gallery. Reginald has been amazing. He's very supportive, and he actually reached out to me saying that he thought my work was good, and he wanted to show me. And we're still in conversation about the details, but I'm really excited to bring my work to the West Coast because I've never shown over there. So.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Well, I have you've just zoom through my questions, but I do want you to elaborate a little more on, you've said something about Afrofuturism.
Mm-hmm.
Please elaborate on that.
Well,
what do you mean?
It comes from a Dare essay. He writes about the fact that a lot, for example, the kind of movement of African Americans feeling alien or feeling like they didn't have a place in this country because they couldn't always figure out where they came from, where their roots are or were, and then trying to create an identity for themselves. And so that basically is what Afrofuturism is about. It expands into music. A lot of jazz musicians, talk about it in different ways. It expands into visual art. It's about, also thinking about, mythologies that date back to the ancient Egyptians as well, and kind of how they valued artwork and their gods and goddesses and how they operated in their lives. So it's it's spiritual in one aspect, but it's also extremely artistic in another way, and it's about expression of trying to figure out or trying to create or trying to manipulate history, basically.
Interesting. For Voicing Art, I'm Jenny Glover. See you next time.